All right, so let's talk about this topic. We have Wade Hendricks with us. Wade is a big time deer hunter, a big time bass fisherman and tournament fisherman back for more than a decade. He's got a lot of perspectives here, but we're talking about. There's my Wisconsin accent right there. About or Canada.
I do. Yeah.
Wade, let's talk about social media. You know, it's something that we live with on a everyday basis. And I know you have not as much gray in your beard as I do, but you, I'm sure, were there before this was all around.
Yeah, absolutely.
And before I give you my thoughts, which everybody probably knows already, where do you see social media? We're talking specifically for the hunting industry. I hate to use that term, but a hunting community, because it doesn't have to be the industry. The hunting community in general, good, bad, indifferent. What do you see where social media stands right now with the deer hunting community?
Well, based on our own personal preferences as hunters, fishermen, whatever it may be, you have different types of platforms out there, right? You've got group pages, personal pages, all that kind of stuff. And for me, I'm not really that active on any platform, really. I just go through chasing my passion no matter what social media is doing. But it's part of everyone's life, marketing, promotion, staying in touch with, people, that type of thing. But as far as how it affects the outdoor world, I think it's more of a good thing than it is a bad thing. Communication is the key on every level, and yes, it does stir up the pot a little bit on certain topics. What broadheads are best, whatever
Right.
it might be. But it's about communication, and in the big scheme of things, I want to know what you think. I want to know what other hunters are thinking and whatnot, because together is where we have the most, I guess, value. We have the biggest voice, from a together standpoint. And the social media, I feel like, helps connect us as hunters.
That's a more ubiquitous view and a more diplomatic view than I think a lot of people take. Because, well, from my standpoint, I get a little jaded on it. And I guess the reason why I do is because it is a big melting pot. Because we look from, so let's look from my experience here at Deer and Deer Hunting for 28 years. We've been preaching to the same very small choir.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hardcore, serious whitetail hunters. Let's just say, and we all have been doing that in the industry. We've been preaching to, say, maybe 1 million out of 11 million deer hunters. And now when we have social media, that melting pot is 11 million deer hunters. And what I see today, a lot of it makes me cringe. I see the younger generations not really understanding what we went through.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not, and obviously not following the same paths that we did, shooting rabbits and squirrels, and there were no deer. And then to get a deer was a precious, sacred thing. Now it's almost like sacrilegious. I see a lot of that really bothers me. I see a lot of the, trophy worship kind of seeping in there. And what I mean by that, it's not being a big buck hunter. That isn't, because I know everybody, we all admire big bucks, but I think it's almost like degraded to the point where they feel inferior. Like, this is the progression. You see a new hunter come in, they shoot a buck, and then they post it to social media. It's like, well, it's not the biggest one, but, and I just feel like it's almost like a lesson in psychology where it's like we're trying to educate these kids who never had that before. But I mean, as far as the positive aspects of it, I think it is bringing good light to hunting in some ways.
Without the censorship, because that's the other big thing that we're experiencing now in the hunting community is the censorship side of things. And, they're trying to put a big block on us having the communication. Because, I mean, outside of, I don't want to make this a political thing, but when it's all said and done, we as hunters are a community that have a big voice or can have a big voice. And when they shut us down, and all the things we stand for as hunters outside of hunting, we're all somewhat of a selective group when it all broken down politically. So I feel like that's another part of the social media things that is really crippling us as well as the censorship side of things.
So let's talk about politics for a second. As far as that goes, are hunters all part of the same team?
Mm-hmm.
Are they?
Good question. I want to say they are. I hope they are, because along with their hunting privileges should be a certain belief that they are able to go out there and I guess basically follow their passion and enjoy the outdoors and whatnot. First Amendment, stuff like that, Second Amendment. So it's just, I hope so. I really do hope so.
I agree with you, and for this point, because divide and conquer, and that's what I don't like about. Let's talk about it. Let's Facebook mostly. Facebook it's always about taking a side. You're either a Republican or you're a Democrat. You're either a hunter or you're a non-hunter or an anti-hunter. Mm-hmm. And I think that divide and conquer does play at us, but at the same time, I think this is my thoughts. You chime in with your thoughts. I think that we can police our own ranks by just being like, not bullies, but saying, hey, listen, did you really have to post that photo of you laying down with the deer taking a selfie? Well, yeah, that's what I know, but you are preaching to a larger audience, not just your circle, maybe non-hunter circle, which, like it or not, the non-hunters, I've always said, not the anti-hunters, the non-hunters, the people who really don't one way or the other, those are the ones that we do have to care about. Do you have to educate? Thank you. Better term. So I think that's a good way or a good way of putting that. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of get down into the weeds, and you mentioned to it with broadheads. I mean, I see it all the time. I mean, people ripping on expandable broadheads. Yeah, well, it's deer's wounded because you're shooting. And it gets into other things like meat hunters versus quote unquote trophy hunters. And I know you work with Apex Outdoor Rewards. Mm-hmm. It's people say, well, that's competition. Not really. Where do you see that dialogue, that conversation on a more broader level as far as, I like I said, I think people try to divide themselves saying, well, I'm a meat hunter, I'm a trophy hunter, and we can't get along. Can they?
I believe so. There needs to be both. I don't think you can be one or the other. There needs to be both. I may have mentioned this, in other conversations where deer density is a problem in some areas. We got to have the people that are just out there to harvest for the meat. They're not really concerned about the maturity of the animal. I, on the other hand, am after mature animals and target mature animals for the challenge and for the reward in that, the personal reward. But along with general deer management comes the requirement to harvest does and do those types of things because, a lot of education points in the direction that a mature animal doesn't like to be in a big crowd of other deer. So on your property, you may want to keep the density down. So there has to be an equal balance of both, I think, in the interest of conservation and the interest of deer herd health.
How have you seen that go, say, in the past? I know you've hunted a bunch of different states. I know you have a place in Iowa now. Mm-hmm. How have you seen that go in the past, say, 15, 20 years? Have things changed at all? The landscape changed?
Absolutely. When I was a youth growing up, if it had antlers, it was going back to camp. Not the case anymore. And I think that not only has that perspective a change in hunters' minds over the years, but as hunters, we all mature as well. I want to see that animal reach its full potential rather than be rewarded by my fellow hunters at the camp when I get back and say, great job or something like that, or nice deer. So I think as hunters, no matter where we start as a novice, we mature to a certain point. And one hunter may have grew up in a family of hunters where it's just all about, let's fill the freezer. Yep. And at some point, that's enough. But if they really are passionate about the outdoors and passionate about the whitetail, they will grow out of that at some point and maybe take another perspective at it and be, well, I just want to harvest mature animals. Yeah, I'm going to harvest some immature deer because I would love eating whitetail and nurturing my family with that. But when it's all said and done, everyone has an opportunity to branch off in a certain direction of maturity that I think ultimately helps out the conservation side of things.
Another interesting thing when we talked about Iowa, this is one that kind of gets me, and this is a sidebar, this is off the subject, but I see this on social media a lot, and when we do these podcasts. But all right, I'm going to give you an example. Hunter from Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. If we could just do what Iowa does, we'd have more big bucks. Okay, I'm a hunter from Wisconsin. We have 725,000 deer hunters. Well, if we could just do this, if we could just have a $1 limit, or we could just limit guys to, well, we're not gonna, but like we could limit guys to just shotguns for 3 days like they do in Illinois, we'd have so many more big bucks. What would your response to that be?
I feel like there are some practices that certain states do that are an absolute positive for the deer herd and the maturity protection. I guess we'll call it the protection of mature animals, because they just don't get slaughtered per se each season. But and in other cases, there's just a lot of variables around that. There's too many variables that surround that. There really is. To say that there's one fix for it all, there's not. But I know a lot of what I would consider experts in the industry would say that there's some states that could do a better job management-wise to help that side of things. There's certain states that could be producing a lot bigger deer that are not, if they did adapt certain management strategies into their, I guess, the state environment.
And I do agree with that, but on the larger scale, I don't agree with it, because like the example I gave you, the one example I think we were talking about last week was a guy said it was from Pennsylvania. And bless your heart, I mean, you're from Pennsylvania. There are a million deer hunters.
Pennsylvania, that's a
million deer hunters. Pennsylvania, and they were sitting. There was this argument going back and forth. Well, if we could just be more like Ohio or Iowa, I'm like, dude, hang on a second. There's 30,000 deer hunters in Iowa. You have a million deer hunters in Pennsylvania. You can't. You can't do that. You might see Mark Drury killing a big deer, but there's a reason why he's in Iowa. They're great deer hunters. They're great deer managers, but that's why they're not doing it in Pennsylvania. So I think you have to keep those things in consideration. Again, sidebar, I kind of got a little over caffeinated on that one.
A lot of variables.
A lot of variables. Yep. Better way of describing it. See, Wade is better with his words, even though I've been supposedly a wordsmith for 28 years. So we talk about some of the other things that come up in social media. The biggest one I see, or I would say it's probably the biggest one, is access. Because, that's something we've talked about for decades in what is hindering further participation in hunting is access. And then I see that there's a big outgrowth now. You see the hunting public guys, because they're just like, hey, we want to hunt. And it's almost like a case of haves and have-nots, but I see that as a positive thing, because I think, especially with all the technology that we have with, Hunt Stand and things like this, that things that we didn't have when we were younger. Absolutely. Are you seeing some of the same things as far as opportunities, but also maybe some of the drawbacks to increased participation? I
see the opportunities. When we were kids and when my father was a boy, they had access everywhere. There really wasn't this, a lot of posted property when my dad was a boy and whatnot. But with the public hunting, Onyx would be another one that people are using to see where they can actually go. The pandemic was another one that really brought people to the outdoors. So I feel like there has been somewhat of an increase in the last couple of years. But social media-wise, as I said earlier, I'm not a big social media person. I don't. My wife is, and her business is. Social media has been a positive thing for her ability to be successful at what she does. But from a hunting perspective, I'm not that active in it to see how there may have been some type of effect there.
Yeah, I think we should take a page out of his notebook, and not be so active on social media, because it does bring you down. Okay, guys, we're going to take a break to thank one of our sponsors. Hit record and win rewards. Enter the Apex Whitetail Challenge in your state
for your opportunity to win big cash. Enter today and get a 4K camera absolutely free. That is right, a $300 value camera absolutely free. Reserve your spot today at apexoutdoorrewards.com. So I want to tell you about this a little bit. If you enter the challenge, you get one whitetail entry for each challenge. You get a 4K digital camera free, a mounting bracket for the camera, 2 rolls of antler measuring tape, a 32 gigabyte SD card, a USB charging cable, and a 90-minute battery with wall charger. That's all included in this, and you have an opportunity to win big cash. Check it out again at apexoutdoorrewards.com.
What about, okay, so I'll just bring another criticism for maybe management or participation is that there's not enough game, there's not enough deer, which that one blows my mind, and there's not enough trophy animals where I hunt, therefore I don't want to take up hunting because it's not worth my time to get invested in this because I'm not going to be successful. What would you have to say to like those types of
Those are all the wrong approaches in my mind. For me, what's the biggest joy you get out of going to the woods? For me, it's that solitude. It's the removal from society to spend the time in nature and feel the fresh air on my lungs and the sounds of nature. That's where the true reward is for me, is being in the outdoors. If I harvest, great. If I don't, no problem. And then I want my family and my children to be a part of that environment. I don't want them to be, unfortunately, city dwellers, and that's a choice. That's just I think a lifestyle choice, really, for the most part. If you want to introduce your youth to that and your family, I would want them to understand that perspective and that I guess that world journey to have access to the outdoors. And whether you harvest a mature deer or an average whitetail for meat or for antlers, whatever your personal goals are, that's I'll give them, that's your personal business. But introducing people to the outdoors is only a positive.
And that's staying grounded. And we've talked about that is staying grounded and experiencing sunrises and sunsets that you can't
Absolutely.
you can do from a balcony, I guess, but you're not going to do it the way you are if it's 35 degrees outside and you're sitting in a tree. It's so much different.
And, spinning that back around to the Apex Outdoor Rewards, the camera that we offer with every entry that hunters come into our platform with, there's so many, and as well as your organization, you capture so many unbelievable things just because you're in the elements. You have the camera there to capture it and be able to relive that moment, because there's days I've been out in the woods or in nature in general, and it's never been recreated ever. It was in the moment. It might have been 15 seconds or 15 minutes, but it was a moment that now I have on film to go back and relive. And it's just, nobody does it better than the Lord above as far as creating a masterpiece out there in nature.
What are some of the coolest things that you've outside of a deer? What are some of the coolest things that you've seen here recently, like maybe got on camera?
Ice storm, hunting after an ice storm, just the beauty of just really words can't describe what the light and the sun does in the woods when it's covered with ice, and that you just spend more time on the camera than looking for wildlife. It's
That's
just
pretty
those
cool.
types of things, where that nature just seems to. It's not good for driving.
No.
But the scenic element, it was just breathtaking. Things like that you're not going to see, like you said, from your balcony in the city.
We had a cool spider web that we saw in the meadow last year.
Yeah.
The other thing that wildlife-wise, I saw a fisher for the first time, and that was pretty good. It's like a big weasel. It's like the size of a cat, which I thought was pretty cool. But those are the things too. And my daughters, they don't hunt anymore, but when they would go with me, I just remember my oldest daughter, when I took her, she would always fall asleep. I would always bring for her an Orange Crush, because she'd never got that. And she would get that, and then she'd drink her Orange Crush and fall asleep on me. And I remember her commenting, like, she's never slept so good when she slept outside. And we were just sitting we actually weren't even in a blind. We were just sitting in a brush pile.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things But things I always say too, if you're taking a kid, you might think like, oh, they're not going to hunt, but they pay attention. And I think someday, either if they come back and they hunt again or they don't, they've had that experience that you, especially today, it's more and more and more just removed and removed from reality. And that's why I've always preached, wild protein, vegetables to grow myself, that kind of thing. You don't have to do it, but if you do it, you have that connection, and that is something special that you don't get from a screen.
And that's a responsibility we have as hunters to educate our youth, because as we talked about earlier, with censorship on social media and whatnot, we're not going to be able to potentially do it 100% there. So it falls on us as individuals to keep spreading that opportunity to our youth and getting them involved in the outdoors, because I don't think any child has ever been, or youth has been introduced to it, just forgets that. It's just something, whether they choose to hunt for the rest of their life or not, they definitely appreciate the outdoors.
What about comment about there are too many hunters? Too many hunters in America. That's why I don't do it. There's just, the public land is just hammered. That's another one we hear. Well, we don't go because it's not worth going.
My opinion on that would be they just got to get a little bit further off the road. There's so much public land. I don't know the statistics or numbers on how much acreage there is, but had I not been a landowner myself and I was forced to hunt public land, I would be digging into the deepest, darkest areas of the public, what the public has to offer.
I agree, and I think it's a misnomer that there are too many hunters, because we hear it all the time. Thankfully, I don't have lots of big private land to hunt. I got small places that I hunt. But if I hunted public land up in Bayfield County, Wisconsin for over 20 years. That's how I learned how to hunt. When people say, oh, it's just hammered, you drive by the parking lot, there must like 1 or 2 trucks there. And especially today, and I don't want to be the old guy shaking my fist at the clouds, but back in my day, we had to do aerial photos that we get at the library. And that's how we had to learn how to scout. Today, you can just open up your phone.
Oh, it's opened up.
And it shows you what's public and what's not. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in some of these other states that I've found, Iowa's one, Illinois is one. Some of the Missouri, they have a lot of CRP. There's a lot of those places where you can actually go and check out, like, oh my gosh, this is a walk-in area. Mm-hmm. Here back home, there's state lands, DNR lands, there's national forest, but it's getting back in there. And then, if I can just give one unsolicited piece of advice, I always say it's a 3-year program. Basically, if the ultimate thing is people want success, it's going to take you 3 years probably to figure it out, which is kind of like you said, it's kind of like that's the challenge. That's the puzzle that you can put together. So I would say probably try to go in with more of a glass half full attitude.
And not the attitude that it's instant gratification. That, first time out, it happens, right? Someone sits on a bucket and they shoot the trophy of a lifetime. But it's the idea that you're hopefully taking more from the journey and the adventure in the woods than just a deer.
So let's talk a little bit more about Apex Outdoor Rewards. What is involved and how can people learn more about it?
Well, if someone hasn't heard about us already, we are a reward platform for whitetail and turkey hunters that can participate in a number of states at this point. We're in 8 states throughout the Midwest, and they're able to get an entry. For their entry on the Whitetail Challenge, they get a complete camera package to record their hunt.
This camera right here.
And with that, throughout the course of the season, I think Wisconsin, you're a 2 harvest state on bow and rifle, I believe, or firearm.
Yep.
And so they could enter twice if they want. And we limit it to 1,500 entries for each state. And for a full, I believe, a full field of entries, we pay out, I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe we pay out like $170,000 total.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that goes all the way down to
1,250th place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can be shooting, like I said, it doesn't have to be a 150.
No.
You could be shooting a 100-inch deer and you could be getting a reward of some sort.
Say you shot a 100-inch 8-point. It's automatically put into an 8-point drawing and eligible for, I believe it was like 5 or 10,000. Wish I knew all the payouts off the top of my head, but our operations director, if he
Well,
was here,
we can do
yeah,
that though.
yeah,
I mean, they can go to the website and look out
Absolutely.
more there. And the other thing too, I thought was interesting. You do have a section for turkey hunting as well.
Absolutely. And the great thing about the turkey challenge we have in multiple states, we had a turkey challenge last year. I think we were in like a dozen states last year. And we're offered in like 23 states. But when we reach 500 reservations in a state, we activate it. And so I think we had 12 or 14 states that were active last year. And what's great about the turkey challenge, they don't have to record the harvest. They only have to record the measuring of the bird. And so they're sent a turkey tool, which we don't have here today to show you what that is. But it's basically a scale that weighs the bird. It has a measuring tool on there that measures the beard, measures the spurs. They enter it on their app. They upload the process of them filming it and while they're measuring it right to our database, and their score then at the end of the season operates just like the Whitetail Challenge, blind leaderboard, and the totals add up, and they're basically given their rewards at the end of the season.
I should have entered last year. I should have 5 turkeys last year.
Nice.
So I should have entered them, but I didn't. So that is, I am
And
sorry.
that's only $125. That's the $125 entry fee on those birds, and I believe on that side of things, it's a pretty large payout too. I think top 5 birds pay out $10,000 a piece. So it's not like, and then 6th through 10th was like, I forget what that was too. It might have been like 7,500. So we've taken sections. We just don't want to reward the one top bird because they're going to be close in score. So we've kind of broke it up that way, and that one pays out to Turkey Challenge pays out all the way down to, I want to say 300th place or 400th
300th place.
or
So
something.
you stand a really good chance.
Every 10 places on the leaderboard is a payout.
And the whitetail, I know we talked about this in a previous program, but the whitetail entry, you can enter at any time during the season.
Anytime during the season. Yeah, don't feel left out because you didn't get in before the season, because the entries accumulate all season long.
And,
Yeah.
and the other thing Wade was telling us is you don't know where you stand until the season's over. So it's not like, so don't think like he said, don't think like, oh, I'm too late, or, oh, I don't stand a chance now that I'm 3 months into the season and I shot a 115-inch deer. You're not going to know.
No.
As long as you've recorded it, measured it, entered it. You have all the way up to the midnight on the last day of your state's,
That's
whatever
right.
your season closes.
Yeah, 2 years ago in Tennessee, we our first place winner harvested his deer on the very last day of the season.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, with a firearm. So it can happen at any time. And so it doesn't, you may be targeting a certain deer all season long and waiting till the last 2 weeks to get on the board potentially. So there's a lot of different strategies with this platform that hunters would take. And like for myself, if I were involved in it, I would harvest a call deer potentially on my farm. I would say, okay, I'm going to get this deer, get him on the board, and now I'm going to chase my target deer. And maybe take that approach. So I know I've got an opportunity.
You got
at
one already
something,
in there,
right?
yep.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways people can approach their opportunity there.
Very cool. All right. He's Wade Hendricks. I am Dan Schmidt. Thank you for joining us. You want more information on this? It is Apex Outdoor Rewards. Just type it in. You're going to find it. And like I said, deer and turkeys. Wade, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody, check out the Deer Talk Now podcast. That library is deep. Check it out wherever you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast. We will keep bringing them to you weekly. So until next time, for Wade Hendricks, I am Dan Schmidt. Thank you for joining us. This episode is brought to you by Drop Tine Spirits and their premium 12-point bourbon whiskey. The story of Drop Tine's finest bourbon starts with being double barrel aged. What this means is they first age the bourbon in new charred oak barrels in America's heartland, then send it to California to be finished in the salt air of the Pacific in the finest brandy barrels. Finishing their bourbon in brandy barrels was the choice of many trials to find flavors as unique as the Drop Tine deer. They wanted a bourbon that is not only warm to the palate, but it would sip smoothly and leave notes of fruit behind. They found the perfect brandy barrels in the Russian River Valley near Sonoma, California, and what they created is a bourbon whiskey that exhibits a sweet, floral, almost honey-like aroma balanced by caramel, toasted wood,
brown sugar, and toffee. 12 Point Bourbon is only available online. To get a taste for yourself after the hunt, visit droptime.com. Deer Talk Now is also brought to you by HuntStand and the new HuntStand Pro app. Let me tell you, I've been using the HuntStand app for a couple seasons now, and I can honestly say it has changed the way I hunt. There's no more guessing on wind direction, property lines, and stand locations. The app takes my hunting to precise new levels that help me be more successful. The new HuntStand Pro app unlocks unlimited property data on a nationwide basis, including detailed property boundaries throughout the United States and most of Canada, including property owners' names in the United States with detailed ownership information. You can also access detailed public land maps and search for properties on a county, state, or province level. There are so many features that also help you dial in on the best spots based on weather conditions. For more information, visit the App Store or log on to huntstand.com. This podcast is brought to you by Cuddyback Cameras. I'm going to tell you guys, I've known Mark Cuddyback personally for over 20 years, and I've been using those cameras for over 18 years on Deer and Deer Hunting TV. The recent technology in the past few years has absolutely blown me away, and for those of you who don't have great cell coverage where you hunt, Cuddyback's ability to daisy chain from one camera to another camera with new CuddyLink technology is an absolute lifesaver. With the ability to connect 24 cameras, I place one home-based camera at the edge of my property, swap that card out just once a month, and I get a look at all the activity on my entire property. My deer stay unpressured and the conditions are prime for opening day of bow season. For those of you who have the luxury of cell service, check out their new Cuddyback Tracks technology. This is game-changing. For more information, go to cuddyback.com. Deer Talk is also brought to you by Traditions Firearms, a family-owned business and inventor of the new Nitro Fire muzzleloader. When owner and president Tom Hall and his daughter Allison first showed me the Nitro Fire system, I was immediately impressed that it is not only more convenient than conventional muzzleloaders, but it is safer. The ability to quickly remove the powder charge is a big deal, such as when crossing a fence, climbing into or out of a tree stand, transporting your rifle in a truck or an ATV, or when hiking rough hills, wading creeks, or plunging through swamps. I've used the Nitro Fire on numerous Deer and Deer Hunting TV hunts over the past 2 years, and I find it safe, accurate, and very dependable. The gun is available in numerous configurations. To learn more, visit traditionsfirearms.com. The Deer Talk Now podcast is also brought to you by Apex Outdoor Rewards. Hit record and win rewards. Enter the Apex Whitetail Challenge in your state for your opportunity to win big cash. Enter today and get a 4K camera absolutely free. That's a $300 value absolutely free. There are some serious rewards here, guys, so be sure to enter in your state. Who would have thought your next buck could be putting money in your pocket? Reserve your spot today at apexoutdoorrewards.com. The Deer Talk Now podcast is also brought to you by Full Range Mounting Systems. These mounting systems are a great way to manage all of your mounts in a stylish and organized manner. We are using their pedestal mount here on the podcast set for 2 shoulder mounts, and it looks just awesome. Be sure to check out all their mounting solutions at fullrangesystems.com. And finally, Deer Talk Now is brought to you by 10 Point Crossbow Technologies. Hey, if you've watched me on Deer and Deer Hunting TV, you know that I'm an equal opportunity bow hunter, and for most of the past decade, that has also included crossbows. In fact, I shot my first crossbow deer with a 10 Point over 12 years ago, and to say that I've been impressed with their technology is an understatement. This year, I'm shooting the new Nitro 505, the fastest crossbow in the world. It is light, compact, and includes the revolutionary AccuSlide cocking and decocking technology. Whether I'm in a tree stand, ground blind, or spot and stalk hunting, I know the Nitro 505 is up to any challenge. Check one out at a dealer near you or log on to 10pointcrossbows.com for more information.